The world was already changing rapidly, but it seems that COVID-19 has accelerated it. Oil prices going negative for the first time, huge career setbacks, changing workplace trends, and a lot more. With all of this going in the background, we feel there's nothing more important than communication. We want to discuss the events and the way forward with you. In times like this, we all must come together as an industry and contribute in whatever way we can. I am Garima, and joining me on the dais today is Yogashri Pradhan, Senior Reservoir Engineer at Endeavour Energy. Thank you so much for joining us, Yogashri.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Yogashri, how are you looking at the current dynamics
of the oil and gas industry?
Yes.
The first thing that came into my mind is this is something that isn't seen before, and I'm not the only one who's been saying that. There are people from many other generations that have been working in oil and gas that used to talk about how they've seen something worse than a 2015 or 2016 downturn. And then 2 weeks ago, April 20th, WTI crude went down to negative $37 a barrel. And that's when people from previous generations were also at a loss of words too, that this is very unprecedented. You not only have oversupply or a shock in demand, but you also have the coronavirus pandemic that's
right
too. So what I've seen as a change, and this might answer other questions that you might have, is there used to be a stigma of working remotely as far as how can that be possible in the oil and gas industry. Well, now that we're kind of forced to work remotely and use communication tools like Zoom, use a bunch of webinars or Microsoft Teams, I see a lot of people adapting to those kinds of changes of working remotely and working in a larger group and making use of those kinds of tools. But I also see people being a little bit more creative in how they network too. There's nothing you can't replace the person-to-person conversation or the in-person meetings, but time like this, I think people are becoming a lot more creative in how they can network, how they can get interviews. So leaning on those tools such as Microsoft Teams or Zoom, I've seen that being the change, and I think people might be more open to working remotely, or if people want to have those flexible work hours, that might be possible.
Mm-hmm. Right. So before we dive deep into the situation, I would love to know about your journey with Endeavour Energy, because
Sure.
that helps me understand how are you looking at this transition.
Well, to give you some context, I started working for Endeavour in 2018, so that's when the oil prices were going back up a little bit, and I moved to Midland from Houston, Texas. So to give some context for those who aren't familiar with Texas or the United States, it's an 8-hour difference. When I say 8 hours, it's like an 8-hour driving difference between Houston and in Midland. Midland has a reputation of being the middle of nowhere, and people who are used to living in a large city and moving to a smaller town, it's a huge culture shock. But I really enjoyed my time at Endeavour. I wanted to work for an operator. I started out working as a development engineer. What that means is you propose to management on well packages or developments, justifying that this will be profitable, or this can continue the cadence, or this can continue activity in your respective area. So I had the opportunity to have that kind of role. And I have a very technical role too, in that I do an entire Midland Basin case study, and I get to apply a lot of the skills that I've had in my previous jobs that are specific to reservoir engineering. It's not just project management, it's your classical reservoir engineering work.
I'm so sorry, I lost the connection.
No worries.
Yes, please continue.
Well, I said classical reservoir engineering work, such as the rate transient analysis, the pressure transient analysis, and that was pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Yogashri, you're very actively involved with SPE. And I also see that you're a founding member of SPE Cares. I would like to know how this organization has shaped your career path, and what do you think about your role in this organization?
SPE has helped me quite a bit, and I didn't realize how much it would have benefited me technically and professionally.
Mhm.
I learned about SPE when I was a senior in high school, when I had my first internship in an oil and gas consulting firm. And my first mentor, he was the one who introduced me to the Gulf Coast section in SPE, young professional events and all these technical events. I went to OTC for the first time, and and I even did an SPE short course as a high schooler who didn't take any petroleum engineering classes, and sitting in a short course on history matching, everything was over my head. But that's when I learned how to develop a network, ask a lot of questions, and I still keep in touch with people who I've first met in SPE over almost 10 years ago. So with regarding SPE Cares, it's a very similar journey. I was in another event at SPE. It was a regional Petrol qualifier event 5 years ago. I made friends with another teammate from another school. It's the Petrol is a quiz bowl, but I befriended a person from another university who was also competing for Petrol, and we kept in touch when I started working full time or after graduation. We started talking about how can oil and gas improve its reputation to those who are not in the industry.
Mhm.
And an idea that we came up with is, why don't we have community service initiatives whenever we have conferences? For example, their ATCE is our annual conference, and you have people coming from all around the world attending this conference and viewing tech, or that are participating in technical sessions. If all these people from around the world can give back to the city that ATCE is hosting in, and that might improve the reputation or improve social responsibility and improves engagement in the community. That's how SPE Cares started. We pitched this idea in the Gulf Coast section, and we piloted this event during the 2015 ATCE with an existing volunteering event, and we branded it as one of an SPE Cares event. But the Gulf Coast section community service committee and the young professionals that are focused on volunteering, they were on board, and we ended up having about 45, 50 volunteers participating in that event right before ATCE. We showed this pilot event to the international board, and they were really happy to have this initiative, especially what the purpose of the initiative was too. So they supported us during the Dubai ATCE. So that's an international event where we ended up having 70 SPE members participating in a tree planting program. And we've continued to have those SPE Care events since then. But these events are not just limited to the annual conference. There are lots of sections and chapters out there that are having SPE Cares like events or volunteering events. Now they're just branding it at SPE Cares on their social media, or whenever they publish an article about the work that they do. That's how much it's grown. And I think because people have shared the same type of vision, where they understand that we need to improve our communication with those that are outside of that are not familiar with the oil and gas industry, SPE Cares was a way to do. So that's one example of how SPE has helped me professionally. And then as far as interacting, meeting mentors while I am volunteering, and knowing and when they learn about my interests on the technical side, that's how SPE has helped me technically. I've gotten exposure to all the sorts of resources that that organization has had, and I've been able to apply it in my day-to-day job too, and introduce those kinds of opportunities to my colleagues.
Right, right. That's really great. And I must congratulate you on your journey. And your journey actually brings me to my next question, which is about how important is networking and personal branding in the industry? Because as you talked about it, that you went to different events, you connected with people. How do you see networking and how important it is for young professionals today?
I think networking it's sometimes underestimated, because I think that's a way to, it's for people don't want to get out of their comfort zone if that's not something that they're used to, but networking is very important all the time, in my opinion. And I think it's a skill that has helped me, or that I realized how crucial it was for me in advancing in my career. Whenever you have a downturn, for example, if you maintain your communication and your contacts with people in SPE events, for example, and if you reconnect with them, you have a point of contact who can provide you resources, or who could give you some guidance on how to deal with the downturn. If you're working in a company, for example, and you want additional information on what others are doing, having those existing networks or existing contacts are very crucial, because you've already established a relationship. I don't know, I mean, despite the varying degree of that relationship, you've established that relationship, or a point person to talk to, and you can potentially, facilitate information sharing or knowledge sharing. I think people do underestimate networking, because while a professional society is very focused on advancing your technical skills, during a downturn or during times that when you need to obtain information or get additional resources, networking can be very, very handy.
Right. And also, what is your take on personal branding, especially when you mentioned downturns like this, the COVID situation that we have today, and any crisis for that matter? How important a personal brand becomes during times like this?
Personal branding is also very important, especially since the oil and gas industry it's a global industry, but it's a very small world. That you're pretty much limited to first or second degree connections. So when you develop your personal brand, that reputation, or that impression can be spread pretty quickly. And I think that's how you can get those networks very easily. You can get those contacts very, very easily. On top of that, personal branding is a very important exercise, especially when you're trying to establish a relationship with somebody in the industry, or establishing a network with someone in the industry. People want to know if you're reliable, or you're the type of person that you can you need to keep that network with. I mean, it's not just about trying to get information or resources from somebody. It's also being able to provide for those networks, or for those contacts as well. And personal branding isn't something that you can just focus on for like once a month or so. I would say your daily work is a part of personal branding. I mean, you want to be known as somebody who is reliable and who produces excellent work, or really whatever your values are. Your personal branding should be something you're very satisfied with.
Right. You have shared some great points here, and I'm sure our students community will especially gain a lot from this discussion. And also, Yogashri, I see that you are on the SPE Women in Engineering Board, right? So how do you see this organization leading change with respect to women in energy?
That's a very good question, because almost every other week we ask this question on how do we make a difference by this global organization. So this organization, or the standing committee, was started in 2016, and it was meant to promote diversity throughout SPE, or increase that awareness. It's supposed to be meant as a platform to promote women in leadership roles. The ways that we've done that, and we have a few pillars, is through STEM initiatives. We have STEM initiatives where there is an engineering curriculum that we've already developed within SPE, and if we have women volunteers to teach in different schools about the oil and gas industry, they themselves are role models for those girls or for those boys. But at least them being the communicators, or them being the people to communicate that information to those students, people will now start thinking that there are many faces to being an engineer. I mean, doesn't have to be a male-dominated industry. When they think of an engineer, they can also think a woman can do it too. That's one way of how we've tried to impact the organization. The second one is SPE has so many awards, professional and technical awards, and we try to promote women in nominating them in those technical and those professional awards. Whether if it's having somebody, thinking about someone in mind is who would be great for a technical award, or who has put in so much work in the professional society that they deserve some recognition. We try to spread that message out as well. And the third one is promoting women in energy events that SPE sections and student chapters do. And we try to participate as an international committee in those sections and chapter events once we learn about them. Once we hear about them, once we know that they've already happened, we try to promote or share their stories, their success stories. So we've provided a platform that helps those initiatives.
I think that's a great step, because what I feel is important at the moment is recognition and acknowledging what women are doing and can do. And I can see that your organization is doing that. And I wish you all luck for, taking this forward from here. That's really commendable what you guys are doing out there.
I appreciate it.
Yes. And if we talk about particularly about workplace trends, how do you see COVID-19 changing it with respect to the oil and gas industry?
I talked about it a little bit before.
Yes.
Question, but as far as the workplace trends go, there has been a decline in using those virtual platforms such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom before the pandemic. And then afterwards, I think people are becoming a little bit more tech savvy, or they understand like how to use Microsoft Teams or how to use Zoom. But on top of that, I think they see that there is a possibility of you can work remotely. You can have more flexible working hours. I've received so much feedback from people that I've worked with, and that they're so much they're very productive at home. They would think it's a hindrance with with being with their family quite a bit, and there are challenges there too. But at the same time, I think people have learned to adapt, and have people have learned to develop a routine to become successful. There was a webinar that I heard actually a couple weeks ago, and it's from Pink Petro, and Katie she's the CEO of Pink Petro. Katie was interviewing, I think, I forgot her, I don't know what her role is in Oxy, but I know it's related to diversity and inclusion. Her name is Pranika Sinha, and she was talking about, the topic of that webinar was about vulnerability. An example of vulnerability is people don't have to be perfect all the time. An example would be is us working remotely and your child is coming in, or my cats would be disturbing me in this interview, for instance, if they're jumping around or if they're running in the background. But I think it shows that people don't have to be perfect all the time, and I think there's a relatability there that everyone is going through something like this, and not always going to have to be dressed up in a suit or corporate wear.
Right.
I think that's been a little bit more acceptable. I think people have become a little bit more human, or I hope people can realize that they could be a little bit more human at work.
And more at ease, I would say. I have been following your cats on Instagram. That is definitely there. And also, if I talk about your personal journey, how are you coping up with this change? A lot of people tell me they're not really happy. Some of them are very happy, including me, because the whole commute has been cut down and I'm able to think and relax and do my work. How are you dealing with this change?
I would say I'm dealing with it very well. I think working from home is something that I enjoy because I'm very productive. The commute from my bed to my couch or my desk is very convenient. And You talk about my cats on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, I really enjoy spending time with my pets quite a bit. It's very relaxing as a work environment, and I think it has a lot to do with the type of work that I do. I mean, I can do all my work on my laptop or on multiple laptops. So as far as adapting or the change goes, I've been very happy about it.
Right, right. And Yogashri, there's one serious concern with the students we are talking to these days. Some of them are very demotivated with the rising number of layoffs and the job losses. What would be your message for them?
I'll start out with an experience that I had a couple weeks ago. I was judging the regional student paper contest for Southwest North America and SPE, and the undergraduates that were presenting are so bright. They come from different problems, and they would approach them differently. You learn a lot about their thinking style or how they approach to solve a problem. But the presentations that they give and the problems that they're trying to tackle are problems that, like, I'm trying to tackle every day, the engineering problems, or people that are so many years my senior are trying to answer every single day, and seeing undergrads trying to tackle this problem and understand very complex subjects it's very promising. And I had to give them some words of encouragement today. They were announcing the winners. Some of the words of encouragement I mentioned to them is the skills that they've put in or the work that they've put in really brings a lot of hope and talent in this industry. Like, they're going to be carrying the torch very soon. And I would say that because they have so much to offer, that the boom and bust cycle shouldn't deter them, because I think you will find a place. It's just that the people start their career at different points depending on the boom and bust cycle, but you'll definitely find your way. I have a personal example where I've gone through 2 of these, and I'm only 5 years into this industry, but I've been able to find my way because I'm very passionate about, like, technical topics, and SPE has helped me out so much. You'll eventually find something that you're very happy with, and I think people will recognize that. I mean, it sounds very rosy, but it does take a lot of no's until you reach something that you really, really enjoy. The other thing I would encourage students to do is follow rejection therapy. And what rejection therapy means is you have to hear no so many times to the point where it doesn't demotivate you anymore. You just know it's a part of the process.
That's a very, very positive message, and it just inspires so much hope listening to you about this. And yes, definitely. It's so important to accept that, it's okay to hear a no from the other side and move on with what we have within us and what we all can do. So yes, that's a very important message that you have for everyone here. And Yogashri, what intrigues me is the personal inspiration and motivation of every individual in this industry for joining this industry in the first place. So I would like to know from you, why oil and gas?
It's a very interesting story. I knew I wanted to do engineering first because I was in a girls' camp for engineering before I started what I say high school, so that's that's 9th grade or 9th standard. And before that, we had during the week-long session of that girls' engineering camp, we had a session where engineers from different industries within the Houston area, because I grew up in Houston, they would come and talk to us about how rewarding an engineering career is. We had some people in oil and gas talk about how rewarding the oil and gas industry is, because you are supplying you are helping the energy demand, or you are helping people improve their quality of lives. And that was something that really impacted me, or that's something I had in the back of my mind. I was also a part of my high school's debate team, or like speech and debate team. And you are required to get a feel of current events, or you're required to be up to date on your current events. So I knew about the business side of oil and gas. I learned how dynamic the oil and gas industry can be, and I have a love of math and science. And when I was applying for colleges or looking into colleges, I realized, or universities, I realized there are universities out there that have petroleum engineering as a major. And when I combined all those experiences together, that's how I knew I wanted to be a petroleum engineer.
That's a very, very interesting story, because if I talk about myself, I don't have a technical background. I didn't know anything about oil and gas industry. But when I joined this organization, I was simply fascinated with this whole world of oil and gas and energy, and especially the people. And that's where I knew that, this is what I want to do. I want to write about them. I want to talk about them. Because like you, everyone has such unique motivations and inspiration for being a part of this global community. And it just amazes me. It simply amazes me how everyone is making a huge impact in this sector.
I agree.
Yes. Thank you so much, Yogashri, for taking out the time for this interview. And we are glad that we could hear about your journey and what you had to say about this crisis, and how, as a community, we can move forward. And let me just check if we have any questions. So yes, I think we'll wrap it up here. And if my team has any questions for you, I will definitely get back to you. I'll connect with you again, and then we will keep you posted on that.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this.
Thank you so much, Yogashri. But before you go, there's just one question which Kanika has posted right now, and it looks really interesting to me. That had you graduated today from college, what would you do to move forward?
That's a very good question. Had I graduated from college right now, what I would have done to move forward, because I'm a pretty technical person, I would have thought about pursuing a master's immediately. And living in Austin, because I graduated from UT Austin, I would have also tried to find work by helping out one of my professors as well. Of course, I would have been very active in an SPE, trying to meet someone almost every single day. And I would really try to find as many side projects as possible to increase my exposure quite a bit. I mean, trying to find work, but also pursuing my passion, because there will be a group that will appreciate you over time.
I think the key message is follow your heart. And we have another question. What is your take on the shale revolution in current scenario?
So I'm not an executive and I'm not an investor, but what I will say is, compared to previous downturns, I know that there's a lot of eyebrows that are raised as far as the probability of shale or liquid-rich shale basin recoveries. And this was even before the downturn, where you probably have read articles about the overestimation of these shale wells, or terminal declines of these shale wells are a lot steeper compared to what's been predicted before. I would say that because you are always going to need oil and gas later on in the future, I mean, there will still be a demand. It's just right now the activity is not so much. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to get smarter in using the technology, and they're going to take the time to invest their time in that, or invest their understanding in that, because when the activity is up, you don't have that kind of time. Now you do have that kind of time on how to work smart.
Right. I think meanwhile, we all can continue looking for bright spots, because first of all, as we discussed right in the beginning, this is a totally new situation for everyone. We really don't know what's happening, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn about this whole scenario. So yes, thank you so much, Yogashri, for joining us today. It was lovely speaking with you, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.